Hello, everybody. This is Adriane Berg. This is the Ageless Traveler. And as you all know by now, this is my favorite part when I actually get to be upfront and personal with my audio guest, my podcast guest on the Ageless Traveler podcasts. And in this case, it's Pamela Holt. If you listen to the podcast, you know that she's the impresario, the host, the producer of Me, Myself, and the World. You can find that on Go Traveler. And of course, if you're on Amazon Prime, it's on Amazon Prime. It's one of the best shows around when it comes to travel. But in her case, it is solo travel with lots of hints and tips for us. So, where are you going next?
Well, I love that question because I have a couple things up in the air. I'd really love to go to Croatia. I'm looking for places to film season 3 of Me, Myself, and the World. So I'm toying with Korea, Croatia, or possibly getting in an RV myself. It's a smaller RV, like a Sprinter van, but a little bit bigger. I already looked at it. It's called the Echo.
Right.
And get in a Winnebago and drive around the country, the US, and look for incredible places for solo travelers.
Yes.
And I already know, so many of them, but I thought, why not? This is something I've wanted to do and explore the US for so long. After 93 other countries, I'd like to see this country.
We travel a lot, 110 countries for me, 93 so far here for Pamela. But why? We're not expecting that of you. Things happen in our lives that set off an inspiration, which I would call, if not now, when. And so you could see how these things in your life, because I know that in my age group, things happen. And sometimes they become devastating, and sometimes they can be turned around into something inspirational and life changing. So now I go back to you. Something did happen to you that could have been a terrible downfall, but instead you turned it into something very inspiring. Tell us
Yeah.
what.
So in my mid 30s, I got into a very traumatic car accident, and I it was a very long recovery. And I said to myself, if I fully recover, I want to go to 80 countries by the time I'm 50 years old. And it was this motivation, it was this healing motivation. And so I started traveling as soon as I could. I ended up having spine surgery, and I took my first trip exactly 6 months after my spine surgery to the Middle East, which the doctors were confounded. But I was healthy. I was ready. I followed all their advice to a T, and slowly but surely started working towards my 80th country. And on my 50th birthday, I landed in Bhutan, which was my
Uh-huh.
80th country. I ended up capping it off with one more. I went to Bangladesh next. But that inspiration for my 40th, my 45th, my 50th, to really strive to hit that 80th country was motivation in life, motivation in my spirit. And then it was the gift that just kept on giving.
Right.
With solo
Well,
travel, I think, travel is the gift that keeps on giving.
it certainly is, but for us, it's our life.
Yeah.
For other people, it's a partial experience, but what we have to bring out to them is that it will inspire you for the rest of your life, even if you take that one trip. It really doesn't matter. I've been around so long that first time I went to Bhutan, they were only opening up tourism,
Oh,
and they
wow.
had their first five-star hotel, and they had no electricity. I know. But here's an example, and then I'm going to throw it to you for a similar type of thing. So I'm in Bhutan. What could be more exotic? I'm in the Himalayas. I mean, my goodness. And I'm trekking because I'm a trekker and walker. But then it was very hard. So I took a donkey. The donkey is on the side of the Himalayas. You could fall off and you're dead. I mean, there's no ifs and but you have somebody who's guiding you with a
Mhm.
rope. Now, he's wearing a loincloth because this is a long time ago. And I'm thinking, how exotic is this? How brave am I? Wow. And then he takes up his cell phone and he starts talking. And through the entire trip, he's on his cell phone. I said, I could be in a cab in New York City. So you talk about everybody being the same. Let me tell you, whether you're a taxi driver or a donkey driver in Bhutan, you're on your cell phone. So, I say it was a long time ago, but it was already cell phone time. So there you go. But these are the things you'll never forget. They're just too hilarious to ever forget. How about experiences like that for you?
Okay,
Have another.
well, I have two great ones. A very, very short one from Bhutan. Our guide um, took us to meet his uncle and his auntie, and we were sitting. They had prepared us a meal. They were so nice, and she kept looking at my shoes. I had on pink Skechers, bright pink Skechers. She hadn't seen them before. And I wanted to open up the conversation and say, do you have questions about America? Do you have questions about politics? I wanted to know what, really open up the floor. And my guide starts laughing. LD just starts laughing hysterically. And he goes, they don't know what the US is. They've never even heard of the US. I'm like, what? And he goes, come on, they just got electricity like 3 years ago.
Amazing.
And it would just talk about perspective. I go, wait, what about England or Britain or some China? They're like, no, they've heard of China, but they don't really know what it is. They just know it's a place over, next door.
Well, I tend to get involved as a tourism consultant. So they were first starting that they were the happiest country
Mhm.
on earth. And now there's a wonderful film. They actually showed it at our own Palm Springs International Film Festival. And I suggested to everybody, The Yak in the Classroom. People ought to see that. And so there's now a very famous Bhutanese filmmaker. But who knew? And you said you had a second incident that you want.
Oh my gosh, this is right in line with what you were saying. So on my 40th birthday, I went to Machu Picchu. Wanted to wake up in Machu Picchu, see it, be there. And the day after, I thought, I'm going to get up. I'm going to start the first day of my official 40th decade doing something epic. So I get up at like 3 a.m. I walk from Aguas Calientes to Putacusi down along the
Right?
train tracks, and I'm going to climb Putacusi. I mean, there's massive warning signs. Do not go any further. Do not climb this. Do not climb this alone, like the whole thing. And I get on my cell phone. I had a very janky video, and I made a video to my mom of like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this alone? I can't find anyone to go with me, but I got to do it. And this whole like, I'm really sorry if I fall and they just return my body kind of thing. And you're literally inverted climbing up these 6 sets or 4 to 6 sets of ladders to
Right.
get to the top of Putacusi. It's insanity. And I'm not even a rock climber. So we do this. I'm almost to the top of Putacusi, this mountain, to overlook all of Machu Picchu. I think I am the most badass on the first day of my
Right.
40th decade. And it's only like 6 a.m. Like I'm up before everybody. Coming down from the top of the mountain was a Peruvian family with two very overweight kids, one of them eating a Snicker bar, like an entire big, huge Snicker bar coming down. They had already been there. They had already done all the ladders I did, including this little 7-year-old. I've
Right.
never been more deflated in my life.
I know, I know. It happens so much. But again, I will say you can also get a lot of self-respect. I'll give you just one on the other way. I had
Yeah.
to get to Texas and I was in the Aleutian Islands, and there was absolutely no flying out because it's only instrument flying. I was
Mm.
actually being paid a lot of money in Texas to be a keynote speaker. I had to get there. So I took a fishing boat through the Bering Sea, which is the most nauseating thing that anybody could do in their whole life, is take a fishing boat. If I get seasick,
Yeah.
but you had rookeries, you had walruses floating all around you. It was amazing. And I was exactly 54 years old. I remember this because I looked at my reflection because I was about to go overboard. And I said, if you can do this, you can do anything. So sometimes you don't get deflated. And I still call upon that moment where I
Yes.
did
You
not,
did it.
yeah, where I did it. And I made it to Texas in time and practically fell asleep during my own presentation, but that's okay because many times other people fall asleep during my presentation. So this was me. Now, I don't want to leave you without hitting three things here. You mentioned the North Pole. You mentioned the Arctic. Let's start with those two. I've gotten to as far as Tromsø and Murmansk, which is in Russia, and I've gotten down to the Falklands, but I never actually hit those spots. So tell us a little bit about being in the Arctic first.
Yeah. Oh, the Arctic was so beautiful. There's a technically up at the top of Norway, there's a station that's on in the Arctic Circle. And you get to stand next to a big sculpture and say, you were there. And of course, I think it's just to get to see the terrain, to walk around at that height, to get up there and really see all of that. It's so beautiful.
Right.
Um, I was much more moved by Antarctica, to sail in to see the different stations for, I think the British, the Russian, and the Chinese and the Chilean station are all very close to each other. The weather changed on a dime. I mean, I'm literally taking a bite of grapefruit, sitting outside, freezing, and within, gosh, I feel like a minute, you could barely clear your dishes. And I mean, there's a huge storm. And then it dissipates. That weather, that climate, that experience was really tremendous. And I think that was the e-ticket ride to Antarctica, seeing seeing how quickly it changes.
So give them a plug. We'll give them a plug. Who did you go with? What was the tour company or the group that you went with?
I went on an Azamar cruise, and we started in Buenos Aires, went over to Falkland, and then made our way all the way
Right.
down to Antarctica, and then wiggled our way up toward, is it Cape Horn?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I had a
So,
similar trip, and I'll give them a plug too. That was, I think it was with Norwegian, and but I stopped at the Falklands, and I always regret that. Don't do that. Don't stop. Okay.
no, keep going.
And then the last I wanted to mention, I said three things, and that was you mentioned Muslim countries that you had done some travel. I have traveled to many of them, and it's been always a wonderful, welcoming, incredible experience.
Yes.
And I work with the United Nations, and I know a thing or two. I know where there's issues. But I would say that if you can do that kind of travel, it's great travel. So did you find it the same way because of the warm? I found the people warm and welcoming. I mean, I couldn't stop
Yes.
having them invite me to their homes all over. And I went by myself, by the way. I was
Yeah.
solo. That was one of my rare solo times that happened.
This is a little cheeky, but when I arrived in Jordan, I mean, this guy must have been 6'5". He was the security guy sitting at the visa checkpoint. And I walked up, and he kind of had smiled at me, so I knew he was joking, and established that he spoke some English. And I said, "Oh, are you are you the big scary Arab that everyone's telling me to
Right.
be afraid of?" And he goes, "Yeah, you want to get on my back? Let's take a picture." You got, I have these hysterical pictures of like, and and I put it on social media on purpose to say, why are we keeping up these faux stories when we're all humans? We all enjoy meeting, we all enjoy connecting, and we all have so many similar stories. And that was a real good icebreaker into, for me, visiting Muslim countries, as well as Indonesia, of course, has a large
Yeah.
Muslim population.
And so does Malaysia, and so does Malaysia. But
Yep.
and I was solo in Malaysia, including on the regular buses and everything. But one Jordan story, in Jordan, I went with my husband, and we actually walked over the border from Israel. Yeah,
Okay.
walked over the border. And we did all the touristic things. We got ourselves a guide. We went to, Lawrence of Arabia, the Wadis, and all that sort of stuff. And of course, we don't speak a word, and we did not hang out with folks who did, because we stayed in a Bedouin camp, which
Oh,
was, yeah, 20
in
bucks
Wadi
a night.
Rum.
Yeah, Wadi Rum, 20 bucks a night, fantastic food, great people. And my husband was really slept like a baby. And about a year later, we did 23andMe, with the DNA. He's 10% Bedouin. What? I have to tell you, I love Omar Sharif. The whole thing, he went up in my estimation. I was married to him for 52 years by then. I didn't know he was 10% Bedouin. That explains everything.
Wow, what a
I know.
coincidence.
I know why he's 76 and his hair never gets gray. It's this huge black. Yeah,
Wow.
amazing. And the comfort zone was fantastic.
That reminds me of a story when I was in Egypt. We had this wonderful guide, and he said that he'd recently had a 13-year-old girl from like the Bronx, and she had bugged her parents since she was probably 2 or 3 years old that she wants to go to Egypt. And her parents are like, "You're a New Yorker and you're Jewish. Like, why
What are
do
you
you want to
doing
go to
there?
Egypt?" Exactly. And she didn't bother them, so she traded her bat mitzvah for a trip to Egypt. She said, "I don't want a bat mitzvah. I just want to see Egypt." And when she was on this guy's tour, and when she got off in the Valley of the Queens,
Yes.
walked off the gangplank, and she looked around. She goes, "Well, you got all that wrong." And her parents are like, "Oh, what?" And she quickly explained what they had gotten wrong. And she turned to the guide, and the guide's like, "She's right. We now know through soil samples we've misplaced things, and she's closer to being right."
Isn't that
And
amazing?
it was because she had a memory.
It's some
She had,
type of memory. So
like your husband.
fascinating. Fascinating stuff. Well, there's a lot, again, to get back on planet Earth, folks, there's plenty of heritage trips. People are taking heritage trips. I've been researching older or mature Black travel. There's some wonderful apps now for heritage trips, particularly in groups and families. So these are all things that you get to a place and you say, I don't know, was I here before? Why do I know what's going on? How come I can understand the language when I never took the language? I hear this all the time. It's such an inspirational thing to do. So I want to thank you so much. I think this is just wonderful. And tell us one more time from your voice where to find your great show
Yeah.
and its exact name.
Yes, you can find Me, Myself, and the World, The Art of Solo Travel on Amazon Prime and for free on Go Traveler, which is the new travel channel. And I just want to inspire everybody out there to solo travel at least once. I know it's going to be, that's a great quote. It'll be the scariest, most liberating experience of your life. Try it at least once.
Well, how wonderful. And you know what I'm going to say to everybody, this is Ageless Traveler. This is Adriane Berg, Lifelong Travel Made Easy. Never stop traveling.